From January 2019 to April 21, the world had changed in ways that no one ever predicted. First, Americans watched on TV as Italy, France, and Germany shut down their economies and mandated everybody stay home. The situation became more and more dire, and the realization came that the same thing would happen here. In March of 2020, America shut down. People stayed home and businesses stopped producing. While the length of the shutdown varied from state to state, many businesses stayed closed for weeks or for months. This created a ripple effect and created long-lasting cracks in the foundation of the U.S. economy, yielding higher prices on a myriad of different products, record high unemployment, and shortages for building supplies and housing, among other things. Despite all this bad news, the BLS reports of the inflation rate during 2020 was a mere 1.4%. How could this be possible? Until 2020, the year-over-year M2 increase in money supply had never surpassed 15%. From 2020 to 2021, the money supply increased a whopping 23%. This huge amount of new money is largely due to the near 0% loan rates, stimulus packages, and subsidized small business loans giving funds to those affected by the pandemic. While this has been reasonably ineffective in propping up consumer spending over the past year, the efforts of this ramp-up in money supply have not yet been realized in the data collected by the BLS. But the effects are hitting consumers and households in several areas. Prices for many consumer and commercial products have skyrocketed since the pandemic began. While most food and household items have remained mostly the same since the COVID pandemic began, there are some items in particular that have seen prices more than twice their pre-COVID prices. Construction materials have made the news in the spring of 2021 as prices for products like rebar steel, material used in concrete construction, has seen a 20% increase in price in a little over a month. This kind of price hike can cause huge upward pressure on construction and repair costs, especially when other materials like softwoods, the wood used in framing lumber, has seen a price spike of 73% year over year. The construction field is just a small part of the overall economy, but the huge price increases are a good example of specific goods worst affected by the pandemic. The official BLS inflation rate, claimed 1.4%, does not account for these goods in their data. Home repairs and construction are essential to maintaining a good standard of living, adequate housing supply for our population, which is already growing faster than homes were being built even before the pandemic. The inflation rate the BLS claims does not paint a complete picture of how COVID-19 has affected certain parts of the market. Another indication of inflation is what's happening with the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the S&P 500. In the past year, the Dow Jones has grown 41% and the S&P has grown 45%. In each of these exchange trust funds, the companies that make them up have had to lower their revenue projections, shut down production, and forego sales due to the pandemic. Why, then, are prices of each of these ETFs rising to record levels? While some of the growth is due to recovery and adaptations performed by many of the companies in the world, this can't account for growth rates near 50%. Some of the companies included, like Apple, 3M, Boeing, and Best Buy, have had to change their complete business models and adjust projection levels to lower than they were 10 years ago. There's an argument to be made that the prices are too high and maybe it's for expectations of a bright future, but another stronger argument could be made that it's the beginning of inflation, that we are seeing these higher values because you need more dollars to buy the same asset for more money than you would a year ago. If the increase in stock prices is in fact due to increased inflation, we could see a fall in the demand for money by households and businesses. In the same coin, the real estate market has been red hot. Prices are rising and homes are selling faster. Research has shown that the median sale price of an existing home in the United States was $313,000 in February, up nearly 16% from a year earlier. A typical healthy increase is about 4%. Homes are selling at an average of 20 days, a record speed where 60 days is typical. It is common to hear homes being bought for over asking price in cash in as little as a week from being listed in desirable urban and suburban areas. To say inflation from 2020 to 2021 has only been 1.4% is misleading. The many daily necessary items are becoming more expensive and stretching budgets more than they ever have before. Whether this is an issue with the CPI system or a lag in the data received by the BLS is hard to say. It is possible that additions to the CPI index need to be made to more accurately represent the costs faced by households every day. People instinctively know that something is wrong. Americans have a good sense of how things are going, and their outlook on things can be telling for situations to come. For example, in April 2021, the frequency of the phrase, "when is the housing market going to crash?" jumped 2,450% compared to 1 month prior. In times of economic uncertainty, Americans tend to keep a close eye on the market and what is going on around them. It seems America believes that we're in a gilded age of recovery, where things seem fine and good, but in reality there is a looming disaster underneath it all. According to CBS News, 4 in 10 Americans say they're feeling the financial impact of a loss of job or a loss of hours in their households as economic recovery remains uneven 1 year into the coronavirus pandemic. Up to 25% of Americans said they've been unable to pay one or more bills in the last month. In general, Americans are earning less now than they have before. Yet according to the BLS, prices have stayed the same if the calculation is to be taken at face value. This presents another problem with the CPI index. While CPI places an importance figure to each category, they do not present it as a percentage of a household budget. Yes, prices for most essential things like food and clothing have stayed the same, but average household incomes have dropped. 40% of Americans under 30 report lower income now compared to March 2020, and the same 40% have been scheduled for fewer hours. Suppose a family spends $300 a month on food and makes $5,000 a month before the pandemic. If a spouse loses the job and the household now only earns $3,000 per month due to the pandemic, the same $300 they spent on food jumps from 6% of the budget to 10%. So yes, the cost of the food has stayed the same, but the amount of money the family has to spend has shrunk considerably. The BLS's indicated 1.4% inflation rate is a flawed figure at best in the context of the coronavirus pandemic. It gives a false confidence to the market and tells an incomplete story of the United States' economy. Money supply is higher than ever. Prices on many goods outside of the CPI have increased, and Americans continue to struggle. As for the abysmal inflation figure, though, it's clear something is missing.